Hello everyone. I'm Sai Teja Reddy Badam. I would like to describe the topic about database encryption. Before going into the topic, we will see the contents. What is meant by data encryption, hashing versus encryption, and triple DES, RC algorithms, advanced encryption standard, encryption data within tables, encrypting with Microsoft SQL Server, encrypting with the application type, encrypting data on wire, encrypting data with MPIO driver, encrypting data via HBS. Yeah, what is database encryption and why do we use database encryption? We use database encryption for securing the data in the database server, and definition of the database encryption: a key way to protect the data within your database is to use database encryption. However, no encryption solution is correct for every database. The encryption requirement for your application will dictate which encryption solution you use. As the definition says that we don't have any perfect encryption for every data. We don't have exact encryption solution algorithm for database. It depends upon the application. So which encryption algorithm you select for your application, and which, so that we can safely and securely we can protect the data. Data encryption is that the more data you encrypt, the stronger the encryption and the stronger the encryption. If you encrypt if you want to encrypt more data, then we have to and in order to have the more stronger encryption, we have to build good algorithms. But this causes them more load on the CPU processor, where in order to encrypt and decrypt the algorithms, the more CPU power will be required in order to encrypt and decrypt the data that is needed. Hashing versus encryption. Yeah, there are two techniques for protecting data: hashing and encryption. Before going into the hashing, I would like to discuss about encryption. Encryption is a different set of algorithms that are used for securing data. As I said it before, encryption is done using one of the several different algorithms that gives you a value that can be decrypted when using a correct decryption key. Suppose after you encoding data with encryption algorithm, if you're using a different decryption key that is not correspond to the encryption algorithm, if you decode the data, you can't decode. After encrypting the algorithm, if you use a proper decryption algorithm that is related to or corresponding to the encryption key only, encryption algorithm, at the time only you can decode the data from the database. Each of the different encryption options produces with the different strength of encryption. As I said, we have different number of encryption algorithms. So each and every encryption algorithm have a different sort of strength of encryption. Hashing. Yeah, hashing algorithms provides you with one-way technique that you can use to that you can that can you can use to mask your data with a minimal chance that someone could reverse the hashed value, get back to the original one. With the help of the hashing technique, we can mask the data, and with the minimal chance only that someone could reverse. With there is a less chances for reversing the data, and they get reversing data or the hash value to get back the original value. And with hashing techniques, every time you hash the original value, you get the some hash. You get as the hashing techniques, you hash the original value, you get the same hashed value. Triple DES. Triple DES, as a triple DES is nothing but triple data encryption algorithm cipher. Before going into the topic deeply, triple DES, I would like to describe about cipher. Cipher text is nothing but a way of changing message to keep it in a secret manner or a hidden manner. So, okay. Triple DES or three DES are the common names for triple data encryption algorithm cipher. The cipher uses the data encryption standard algorithm three times for each block of data that is encrypted. As the definition says that each block of data will be encrypted for three times. So for the data before the data before the data will be encrypted for three times. The data will be encrypted in the 3DES. 3DES actually uses encryption operations to encrypt or decrypt data. As I said before earlier, it says that the 3DES is uses three encryption operations to encrypt or decrypt the data three times for each 64 block of data that is encrypted or decrypted. The encryption and the decryption process can be expressed as shown. Encryption For the encryption, encrypted value 1 by 4 ek3, dk2, ek1, what are the plain value and what are close the brackets. For decryption plain value 1 by 4 dk3 open bracket with ek2 open bracket dk1 and what is the value that is encrypted value for the decryption. RC algorithms. Microsoft SQL Server supports two or the four common RC algorithms. They are RC2 and RC4. RC2 is uses a 40 key size, making it is much weakened algorithm such as RC4. The Microsoft SQL Server uses RC4 algorithm for encrypting data. This is one of the weakest algorithms that is going to be easily crackable by the hackers. Yeah, in the case. Um, RC uses a 40-bit key size, making it such a weak algorithm such as RC4. We support the key sizes from 40 bits to 2048 bits depending upon the needs of the application. In the case of Microsoft SQL Server, you can select from 40 bits and 128-bit configuration. RC is a probably most and widely used encryption algorithm, serving as the encryption algorithm that secure socket layer encryption for both secure shell and HTTPS communication. But the latter versions of the Microsoft SQL Server, we don't find this the RC4 algorithm, RC4 encryption algorithm, because it is easily crackable by the hackers, and they can crack the data from the database very easily with the RC4 algorithm. This is that not that secure, and the earlier version, the old versions will use it, but the earlier versions of the Microsoft SQL Server doesn't have the uh, RC4 algorithm, RC4 encryption algorithm. Encryption Encrypting within the data tables. When it comes to encrypting data with your database table, there are few different options where you can encrypt the data with your application stack, or we can encrypt the data on the server side, or you can on the database side, or you can encrypt the data with the uh, friend side or client side. It both has, if you do both encryption on the friend side or the database side, has both their advantages and disadvantages. Yeah, when you encrypt the data with your applicable stack, it is just as important as question. That is a technique used to encrypt the data. Your choices for where you to encrypt your data will be typically at the client side or with the database. When you handle the encryption within the database, you have benefit of minimum or no changes to the front end or for the front end client. However, the downside here is that all about the CPU is that all the CPU load of the encryption is handled on the database server. Because all the encryption is handled on the database server, that can cause the bottleneck on the database server, as the encryption and the decryption of the data will increase the CPU load of the database. As I said, if you on the as a down of the downside here means on the database side, if you do the encryption and the decryption side, it will cause the more load on the processor. This cause the more load on the processor as we do the complete encryption and the decryption on the database side. The other main disadvantage of the encrypting the data with SQL Server is that you have to store encryption mechanism with the database. It has other disadvantages is that they have in the SQL Server that you have to store the decryption mechanism also within the database server only. Granted, the SQL Server will help mitigate the risk with object level permission and strong encryption of certificate, but given enough encryption time, any encryption is scrapped. If we have ample amount of time, if you even though we have a tough encryption algorithm, whatever tough encryption algorithm, but also it can be easily crackable. The stronger the encryption is used, it would be take a longer. It would take an attacker to break the encryption with the strongest encryption levels, to taking many years of CPU power to break the encryption. It says that if you have the tougher encryption or the using more difficult encryption, it takes the hacker to break the password to break the encryption algorithm. Maybe take a lot of time and also taking many years of CPU power to break the encryption. On the other hand, you can handle all the encryption in all the you can handle all the encryption in the application type. This gives you the benefit of spreading that entire encryption load across the computer that runs the application, but it gives you downside a load of application changes. As I said earlier, both have them as their own advantages and disadvantages. If you do the encryption on the front end side, then you can spread the entire application load across the computer that runs the application. and but it gives a disadvantages that a load of application changes because this is what the disadvantage of the front end side. Encrypting with Microsoft SQL Server. When planning to encrypt data with Microsoft SQL Server, there is a clear in dividing line that you have to keep in mind. Any version of Microsoft SQL Server, which is Microsoft Server 2002, does not include any usable definition for functions function natively. As the definition says that the Microsoft SQL Server, which are older versions like 2000 or older than that, which I have natively, that doesn't have encrypted techniques. So this can be done by using by the third-party entity. They are dynamic link library. Yeah. However, there are third-party dynamic link library which can be used to encrypt and decrypt the data. When using Microsoft Server or older, the only hashing function that you can use is password encrypt. As I already said you, this Microsoft SQL Server, this doesn't have the encrypted techniques in the older version, so they use the dynamic link library functions for encrypting data, and the only hashing function that you can use over there is the user by them is password encrypt. Where encrypting data with the Microsoft server, you can encrypt the data by using three functions. They are encrypt by certification, encrypt by key, and encrypt by passphrase. Encrypt by certificate function. When using the encrypt by certificate function, you are using a certificate that is created with database in order to encrypt the data. Encrypting data with a certificate allows move the certificate from one platform to another easily. As it says, we're gonna encrypt the data by using the certification, so that everything, whatever the data you use, is gonna move from one platform or the other platform. As a certification is there, so we can move the data from one platform to the other platform with the help of the certification mark. With the certification function. Encryption key. The encryption by key function uses a symmetric key to encrypt the data. The symmetric key can be used by creating password, a certificate, or another symmetric key, which you can create as a symmetric key. You can specify the specific encryption algorithm that you want to use in order to encrypt data. The encryption by key says that uses a symmetric key to encrypt the data. By the symmetric key can be created by using it. The symmetric key can be a password, it can be a certificate, or any other symmetric key which you can create the symmetric key. You specify the encryption algorithm that you want to use in order to encrypt the data. Encryption by passphrase. The encrypt passphrase function, you specify a password when calling the encrypt by pass function. The passphrase is used to create a symmetric key, which is then used in the same manner as the encryption by function key is used. This were about the encryption by certificate function, encryption by key, and encryption by phrase. Yeah, comes to the when comes to the encrypting with the application tag, as I already discussed, we'll be changing the application. We have to change some changes to the application on the front end. So okay. This is runs on the front end. This encrypting is runs on the front end. The most common place to encrypt data is within the application tag. Putting the encryption within the application tag probably requires most of the changes to the application. However, it is more scalable place to handle the encryption, as the encryption is workplaced on the web servers and other user desktop. The advantage of handling the decryption with the application is that the data is transmitted within database server and the application tag is encrypted without having to configure and manage IP section within the network. Like it is when the encrypting the data within the Microsoft like SQL server. The main uh, the data is transmitted between the database server and the application, the tire encrypted form without having. So there is no need to configuration of configuration of about manage configuration of managing of IP sections within network. So like when encrypting data within for encrypting data within the Microsoft SQL server. Encrypting data at rest. So Microsoft SQL Server introduced the transparent data encryption feature for SQL Server. This feature allows the SQL Server to encrypt the data as written to the hard drive from the server, and the SQL Server decrypts the data as it read from the hard drive into the memory. As it says that the SQL Server encrypts the data as it written to the hard drive hard drive to the server, and it is decrypts the data when it is read from the hard drive into the memory. This is the way it performs encryption and the decryption of in the encrypted data at rest. The data it performs encryption the data when it is written to the hard drive of the server, and it is will be performs decryption data when it is read from the hard drive into the memory. The advantage of this system is that you are able to encrypt all data with no change to data. Like in application layer, we have the changes for in the front side, and the database also we have to where the load will be increasing, or that some disadvantages to there, but we don't have any of those things over here, because as we directly performing encryption and the decryption to the onto the memory into the hard drive, and then to the and writing onto the on the hard drive, and perform the decryption onto the memory. So the advantage of the system is that you are able to encrypt all the data with no change to the data whatsoever. The feature also protect all your data when it is backup, as the backup also encrypted. The encryption is done by encrypting the blocks of data instead of the data is stored with the blocks. The difference between the two concepts is that when the data is encrypted, only the data within the table is encrypted, while TDE encrypts the metadata about the tables, white space, and the data pages. You Encryption data on wire. Before going into the topic, we will be discussing about small thing. In case of when the wireless technology, the will be getting the data in the place in the case of in sort of packets. There is a susceptible amount of chance that packets can be traceable by the hacker, but in case of wire, we don't have that much chances for the hacker to track the data which is getting from the database. So encrypting data on wire. If you worry is that someone will sniff the network traffic coming into and out of the SQL server, then you will want to encrypt data as it flows over the network, explore the network between the SQL server and client computers. This is can be done by enabling SSL for the SQL Server connection, or using IPsec to secure all network communication. In order to protect the data to and fro, which is coming and which is going data, of encryption can be done by using the SSL, and by enabling by using SSL for the SQL Server connection, or using IPsec or to secure all communication network between the client computer and the database engine. The upside to the SSL is that you manage the upside to the SSL is you manage the connection encryption between the SQL server and the clients within the SQL server. The encryption is also more limited, as only the SQL server traffic is encrypted, while your IP section you have the option to encrypt all or some of the network traffic between the SQL server and the client computer. Encrypting data with MPO drivers. MPO drivers is multi-input output path drivers are only used when SQL Server is connected to storage array via either fiber channel or internet small computer system interface. When you connect to a server to a storage array, you typically do so multiple cables. The advantage of the multiple cables you connect from system to database server is like if you lose one of the connection, if there is any sort of failure, so if there may be other connection, we have the multiple paths, so we can do our work with the different path what we had. So when you connect a server to a storage array, you typically do so over multiple cables, so called paths. This allow you to connect the server to multiple controls on the array and have multiple host bus adapters on the server, so that you have a redundant connection the event of HBA cable or storage control failure. The most common way of thinking this connection is with two switches, so the each HBA is connected with storage control. The each HBA is connected with the storage controller. Not all MPO drivers are created equally. Some of the MPO drivers are such as EMC Power Path Include Encryption feature which allows the MPO drivers to encrypt and decrypt the all traffic between the server and the storage array. See, it says that MPO drivers are not created equally. Some of the MPO drivers like EMC such as have the power path include power path encryption features which can allow the MPO driver to encrypt and decrypt the traffic decrypt all the traffic between the server and the storage array. This is done by taking the write request and encrypting the data portion of the write request. So as when the data is returned to the disk in an encrypted form. Encrypting data via HBAs. HBA is nothing but host bus adapters. Is one of the newest ways to set up our encryption to the data. One of the newest ways to set up our encryption to the encryption to do the encryption via your HBA itself. This provides an interesting option for your encryption and decryption of data, because all write and request are passed by HBA. So the data stored on the disk, our disk is stored in encrypted state, much like when you encrypt data or whatever. Here, the encryption of the data is done by using HBA. As the inputs are given, outputs will be inputs of the data as encrypted, and the decryption of the data is done by the HBA. In the encryption of the data, in the encryption data where hubs is completely done by the HBAs. They will be doing the encryption and the decryption of the data. However, the workload of the actual data encryption and the decryption is offloaded from the CPU of the SQL server to the processor on the actual HBA using a technique called HBS assist. However, it says that the workloads, the encryption and the decryption is uploaded from the CPU of the SQL server to the processor on the actual HBA using by using a technique called HBA assist. If you end up pushing so much through IO, if you end up pushing so much input output through HBA, you might overload the processor on the HBA, which would then slow down your input output requests that are requested by HBA. However, if that were done, it become the case. You can simply add more HBA assist, and you can add a server giving more process and to the server giving you more processor to the process the encryption and decryption of the data. It says that if you have to do more encryption and encryption and decryption of the data, if you put giving more data and if you give more data, then the input output system may become slow. It becomes slow. This can be overcome by putting more HBA drivers and more processors, so that the process can be done very soonly. The working of the HBA host adapter driver is as described. HBA is a circuit board and integrated circuit device that provides the input-output processing and physical connecting between a server and the storage device. That is the working of HBA. That can reduce the process weight, and we can do the work easily. And another potential downside that you may see if encrypting data within the HBA is that you are locked in a specific vendor HBA, because as of the summer 2010, only one vendor can encrypt and decrypt the data within the HBA, and the vendor is Emulex. Okay, the only one vendor can encrypt the data with HBA is that is the vendor is Emulex. Emulex currently supports only encryption and decryption of data when using the Emulex one secure adapter. Emulex supports encryption of data when we will be using the Emulex one secure adapters. After the Emulex currently supports Emulex after if you use the encryption and the decryption of Emulex supports when we use the Emulex secure adapters only. This is about the data encryption. I hope you have enjoyed the video. Thank you.